She fixed the stranded stranger's meal after hours. Next morning, his security team filled the entire block. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the story. It was just another night for Emma, a waitress at a small but cozy restaurant in downtown Manhattan. The city lights twinkled in the distance, casting a soft glow over the streets, while the streets themselves were quieting down as the evening rushed toward its end. The restaurant, however, was still alive, the last few customers lingering, finishing their meals, and preparing to leave. Emma wiped down the tables, trying to keep herself busy, knowing her shift would soon end. It had been a long day of serving meals, taking orders, and making sure everything ran smoothly. She had learned how to tune out the noise, to ignore the hustle and bustle, but tonight felt different. As she moved through the restaurant, she noticed a man standing outside the door, looking lost and confused. His expensive coat was covered in snow, and his posture was tense, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. He was out of place, like someone who didn't belong here. Emma hesitated for a moment, then made her way to the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice warm but professional. The man turned to face her, his face a mixture of exhaustion and frustration. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice thick with stress. "My car broke down, and I'm stranded. I've been walking around for what feels like hours. Can you help me?" Emma could see the genuine concern in his eyes, but also the vulnerability that came with being lost in the middle of the night in a city like New York. She nodded. "Of course. Come on in, we're still open. I can fix you something warm to eat." The man smiled weakly, relief flooding his face as he stepped inside. As the door closed behind him, Emma could hear the storm outside picking up, the wind howling as it whipped through the streets. She led him to a booth in the corner, out of the way of the few remaining customers, and handed him a menu. "I'll just be a minute. I'm the last one here tonight, but I'll get something ready for you," she said. The man nodded, grateful for the gesture. He took off his coat and hung it on the back of the chair, his shoulders slumping with exhaustion. Emma went into the kitchen, her mind already racing. She hadn't planned to cook for anyone tonight, but something about this man's situation made her want to help. She rummaged through the refrigerator, pulling out ingredients for a simple meal: soup, some bread, and a fresh salad. It wasn't much, but it would be warm and comforting. As she worked, she couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity about the man. Who was he really? Why had he been walking around the streets at this hour? She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than just a stranded traveler. When she returned to the table, the man looked up, his eyes bright with appreciation. She set the meal down in front of him and smiled. "Here you go. I hope this helps." The man looked at the meal, then back at her, and his face softened. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice sincere. Emma nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. "It's no trouble. I hope you enjoy it." As she turned to walk away, the man stopped her. "Wait," he called softly. She paused, looking back at him. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said, his expression unreadable for a moment. "But I want you to know something. I'm not just some ordinary guy. I'm someone who can make a difference in your life." Emma's curiosity piqued, but she didn't press further. She had learned long ago not to ask too many questions. "I'm just here to help," she said, giving him a smile before walking back to the kitchen. Little did she know, this simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. The storm had passed by the time Emma finished cleaning up. The wind had slowed, but the night still felt heavy with anticipation. She glanced around the small, quiet restaurant, now completely empty except for a few scattered crumbs on the tables. Emma sighed, her back aching from the long hours of standing. But there was a sense of satisfaction knowing she had helped someone in need. She had seen her fair share of weary customers, but something about the man from earlier, the one she had fed, stayed with her. It wasn't just the way he looked out of place, or the exhaustion in his eyes. It was the aura of power he carried, despite his quiet demeanor. It was hard to shake the feeling that he wasn't just another lost soul looking for warmth. As Emma locked up and turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of the city's skyline through the window. The streets were quiet now, except for the occasional honk of a car in the distance. She made her way to the subway, the cold air biting at her skin as she wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck. Her mind kept returning to the man. Who was he? What brought him to her restaurant at such a late hour? She had a habit of asking questions, of wondering about people's stories, but this was different. There was something about him that made her want to know more. As she descended the subway stairs and stood on the platform, she felt her phone buzz in her pocket. Pulling it out, she saw a message from her best friend, Mia. "How was your night?" the text read. Emma smiled and typed back. "Same as always. Tired, but it was a good night." She paused before adding, "I helped a man tonight. He was stranded after his car broke down in the storm. I made him a meal." Mia responded almost immediately. "That's sweet. You always do this. You're like a secret superhero, helping strangers when no one else would." Emma chuckled to herself. She wasn't a superhero, but she did find satisfaction in small acts of kindness. She often thought the world could use more of them. The train arrived, and Emma stepped inside, finding a seat by the window. The rhythmic sound of the train's movement soothed her, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the man. What was it about him that felt so different? As the train rattled along, Emma glanced at the time on her phone. She still had a few stops before reaching her apartment, and she felt the weight of the day catching up with her. It had been a long shift, and her body was telling her to rest. But her mind wasn't ready to let go. The man's face, the way he looked at her when she served him his meal, it all lingered. By the time Emma arrived at her stop, she felt exhausted but strangely unsettled. She walked the short distance to her apartment, her footsteps echoing on the empty street. As she entered her building and climbed the stairs to her apartment, she noticed something odd. A black SUV was parked outside the building. It wasn't unusual to see cars here, but there was something about the way it was positioned that felt deliberate. Emma paused for a moment, then shrugged it off. It was probably nothing. She continued up the stairs and opened her apartment door, slipping inside and locking it behind her. The familiar warmth of her small apartment greeted her, and she tossed her coat on the couch before heading to the kitchen to make herself some tea. As the kettle began to boil, Emma's phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, she opened it. "Good evening, Emma. This is Jack Anderson. I wanted to thank you again for the meal last night. It was just what I needed." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Jack Anderson? That name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. She quickly typed a response. "You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it." She hesitated for a moment before adding, "And you're welcome to come by any time." The response came quickly. "I'd like to speak with you more about something important. Would you be willing to meet me tomorrow? Let me know." Emma stared at the message, her mind racing. Jack Anderson. The name sounded like it belonged to someone important, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it before. What did he want to meet about? She sat down at her kitchen table, holding her cup of tea as the steam rose in gentle swirls. She wasn't sure what to make of the message. Should she meet him? She wasn't one to get involved in business deals or high-profile situations. But something about this felt different. Was this a coincidence? Or was there more to this man than she had initially thought? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. The events of the night had already left her feeling strange. As she sipped her tea, her phone buzzed again, but this time it was an email. She opened it, and her eyes widened in shock. The email was from her bank. She had received a large deposit, an amount she had never seen in her account before. It was the exact amount Jack Anderson had left her as a tip the previous night. How was that possible? Was this a mistake? Or was Jack Anderson really the man he said he was? Emma set the phone down, her hands trembling. She felt the weight of the situation settling in, but she didn't know what to do next. Everything had changed in the span of 24 hours, and she wasn't sure how to navigate this new reality. The next day, Emma woke up with a strange sense of urgency. Her phone buzzed as she sat up in bed, and she saw it was a text from the same unknown number she had received last night. She opened the message with a nervous breath. "Hello, Emma. This is Jack Anderson. I would like to meet you this afternoon. Please let me know if you're available." Her heart raced as she stared at the screen. This wasn't just any ordinary invitation. She had already noticed the strange coincidence of the large deposit in her bank account, the one that matched the tip he left her the night before. Was this just some elaborate scheme? Or was there something genuine behind his request? Emma put the phone down, running her fingers through her hair, trying to push the swirling thoughts from her mind. She had worked hard to stay under the radar, to keep her life simple. She never expected a stranger to come into her world and turn it upside down. Yet, here she was, facing an unexpected choice. She had always told herself that kindness was its own reward. So why did this feel so much bigger than a simple meal she had prepared for a stranger? She had seen enough of the world to know that people with wealth and power didn't often do things without a reason. Still, something about Jack felt different. He hadn't flaunted his wealth or tried to make her feel inferior, like most wealthy clients did. She had to admit, his quiet gratitude had struck a chord with her. Emma got dressed, opting for a simple yet professional outfit. She knew this meeting would likely be more than a casual conversation, and she wasn't sure what to expect. As she walked to the restaurant, her mind kept coming back to the same question. Why did he want to meet? She entered the building, her footsteps echoing against the marble floors as she made her way up to the restaurant's office. It was just past noon, and the place was quieter now, the morning rush long over. She walked through the back door, where she was greeted by Pierre, the restaurant manager. "Ah, Emma, you're here," he said, his tone warm but curious. "Mr. Anderson is expecting you in the private dining room." She nodded and followed him, her nerves rising with each step. When they reached the room, Pierre opened the door, and Emma was greeted by Jack, sitting at the head of a long table. He stood up when he saw her and smiled, though there was an air of business about him that made the smile feel formal. "Emma," he said, his voice steady. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." She took the seat opposite him, her mind racing. "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What can I do for you?" Jack leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped in front of him. "I've been thinking about our conversation last night," he began, "and I realize that I may have underestimated you. I want to offer you something more than just a thank you for the meal." Emma blinked, surprised by his words. "I'm not sure I understand," she said, her confusion evident. Jack paused before continuing. "I think you're more than just a waitress. I've been looking for someone with your expertise, your instincts. I want to offer you a position as a financial consultant. I need someone who can think outside the box, someone who doesn't just follow the usual advice." Emma's mind was spinning. A financial consultant? She had never worked in finance. She had no formal background in the field. She had always loved numbers, but that didn't mean she was qualified to take on such a role. But the offer was tempting, almost too tempting to pass up. "I'm flattered," she said slowly, trying to process what he was saying. "But I don't think I'm the right person for the job." Jack's gaze softened. "You may not have the formal qualifications, but what I saw last night, the way you analyze the market, no one teaches that in a classroom. It's instinct, and I can't teach that." Emma was silent for a long moment, weighing her options. This was everything she had wanted. The opportunity to escape the grind of waitressing, to finally have a career that could make a difference. But there was a catch, wasn't there? There always was with people like Jack. "What's the catch?" she asked, not beating around the bush. Jack smiled faintly. "There's no catch. But I need someone I can trust. Someone who can see things from a different perspective. And I think you're the person to help me make some important decisions." Emma hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You don't have to decide right now," Jack said. "But I'm offering you a chance to step into a new world, one where you can make a real impact. This is a big decision, and I understand that." Emma thought for a moment. This was her chance. A chance to change everything. But was she ready? She wasn't sure. But she knew she couldn't keep going the way she had been, always working long hours with little to show for it. Maybe this was the sign she had been waiting for. "I'll give it some thought," she said, her voice steady now. Jack nodded. "Take your time. But don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come often." As she stood to leave, Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She didn't know where this would lead, but she knew one thing. Her life had just changed in a way she couldn't yet understand. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. She spent her time thinking about the offer Jack had made, torn between the desire for something better and the fear of stepping into an unfamiliar world. Her life had been simple. She had worked hard, paid her bills, and taken care of herself. But now, everything seemed to be shifting, and she was unsure whether she was ready for that change. Her thoughts constantly returned to Jack's offer. She had thought about it long into the night, pacing her small apartment, wondering if she was being naive, or if this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. Her phone buzzed again, breaking her train of thought. It was a text from Jack. Good morning, Emma. I hope you had time to think things over. If you're still interested, I'd like to discuss the details further. Let me know when you're available. She stared at the screen for a moment. Something about the message felt final, as if this was the moment of truth. She took a deep breath and typed back, I'm available this afternoon. I've thought about it, and I'm ready to talk. Jack's reply came almost instantly. Great. I'll see you at the office at 3 o'clock. The rest of the day passed slowly. Emma couldn't help but feel a growing sense of anxiety. She went over everything again in her head. She had no formal training, no degree in finance, and no experience working with high-powered businessmen. Yet, Jack seemed to believe in her. He had seen something in her during their brief conversation that night at the restaurant. She wasn't sure what that was, but she hoped she could live up to his expectations. When 3 o'clock finally arrived, Emma found herself standing outside the sleek glass building where Jack worked. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the city streets. She felt out of place in her simple black dress, the only outfit she had that seemed remotely professional. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The receptionist at the front desk greeted her warmly and directed her to the elevator. As the doors closed, Emma's heart began to race. She had never been in a place like this before, high-end, polished, the kind of place where the elite did business. She wondered if she was making a mistake. The elevator ride felt long, and when the doors opened, she found herself in a spacious, modern office. It was clean, bright, and filled with the kind of sleek furniture that she had only seen in magazines. Jack was waiting for her in a large conference room. His smile was warm but serious, and he motioned for her to sit. Thank you for coming, Emma, he said, his voice steady and confident. I know this is a big step for you, and I appreciate you giving this a chance. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of his words. I'm here, she said, but I still don't fully understand why you chose me. Jack leaned back in his chair, folding his hands together. I believe in instincts, Emma. I've spent years working with some of the smartest minds in finance, but there's something about you. You see things differently. That's what I need. Someone who can think outside the box, who isn't bound by traditional thinking. Emma swallowed, unsure of what to say. But I don't have any formal qualifications, she said quietly. I've never worked in finance. I don't even have a degree in it. Jack smiled, a knowing smile. I've read your resume, Emma, and I've done my research. Your work ethic is impressive. More importantly, you're smart. You've got the kind of intuition that can't be taught. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had never considered herself particularly smart. She had always relied on hard work and determination. But she couldn't deny that Jack's words had an effect on her. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I've never been part of this world. Jack's expression softened, and he leaned forward, his tone gentle. You don't have to be ready right now. I'm offering you a chance to grow, to learn, and to make a difference. But I won't force you into it. The decision is yours. Emma thought about it for a moment. The security of her current life was comforting, but she knew she couldn't stay in the same place forever. She had dreams, too. Dreams that went beyond waitressing, beyond the small life she had carved out for herself. Jack was offering her the chance to change her path, to step into something bigger, but it came with risk. She would have to leave behind the comfort of her familiar life and step into a world of power, money, and influence. It was terrifying, but it was also the kind of challenge she had always craved. I'll do it, Emma said, her voice steady. I'll take the chance. Jack smiled, his eyes gleaming with approval. Good. I'm glad to hear that. You won't regret it, Emma. I'll make sure of that. As she left the office that day, Emma felt a mix of excitement and fear. She had made her decision, but she knew it wasn't going to be easy. The world she was about to enter was nothing like the one she had known. But for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of possibility, something she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was something more. She was about to step into a new chapter of her life, one that she would never have imagined for herself. And though she had no idea where it would lead, she was ready to find out. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Emma. The transition from waitressing to working for Jack Anderson was nothing like she had imagined. When she first accepted his offer, she thought it would be a smooth change, but it quickly became clear that she had stepped into a world that was fast-paced, complex, and much bigger than she could have ever expected. Jack had made good on his promise. He assigned her to work with a team of consultants and analysts, people who were far more experienced in the financial world than she was. At first, she felt like a fish out of water. Every meeting, every conversation felt like a reminder of how little she knew. But Jack had faith in her, and that faith kept her going. He didn't expect her to know everything immediately. He had given her the space to learn, to ask questions, and to grow. One afternoon, Jack called her into his office. "Emma," he said, his tone serious. "I need you to look at something. This is a crucial opportunity, and I want to know your thoughts." Emma hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from him. "What's going on?" she asked. Jack handed her a stack of papers. "We're looking at a potential merger with a competitor. My team is split on whether it's worth pursuing. Some are in favor, but others are hesitant. I need your perspective, the perspective of someone who's not clouded by years of experience in this industry." Emma glanced down at the papers, the numbers and graphs overwhelming her for a moment. But she took a deep breath and started reading. As she went through the documents, she realized something. The numbers didn't add up. There were inconsistencies in the projected growth, and the assumptions about market conditions were too optimistic. She looked up at Jack. "I think we need to reconsider this merger," she said slowly. "The projections don't seem realistic, and I don't think the company is in as strong of a position as they're presenting." Jack studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd see. We're pulling out of this deal." Emma's heart raced as she realized the significance of her decision. She had just helped Jack avoid a potentially disastrous investment. It was a small step, but it felt like a giant leap in her new career. Jack smiled, his eyes gleaming with approval. "You did good, Emma. Keep thinking like this, and you'll go far." His praise meant more to her than she could express. For the first time since she started working with him, she felt like she belonged. As she left his office, her mind was still buzzing with the weight of what had just happened. She had contributed. She had made a difference. And Jack had noticed. That evening, as Emma sat at her desk going over more files, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Mia. "How's it going at the new job?" "Everything okay?" Emma smiled as she typed back. "It's going really well. I'm learning a lot. Still adjusting, but it feels right." She paused before adding, "I think I might actually be good at this." Mia's reply came almost instantly. "I knew you'd be great. You've got this, Emma." Emma set the phone down, her thoughts turning inward. She had come so far in such a short amount of time. She had been a waitress just a few months ago, struggling to make ends meet, wondering if she would ever have a shot at something more. And now, here she was, making decisions that could change the course of a company. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. But Emma was starting to realize something important. She didn't have to be afraid anymore. She had the skills, the instincts, and the determination to succeed. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone with a future, someone who could make an impact. The next morning, Jack called her into his office again. This time, his expression was more serious than usual. "Emma," he began, "I've been impressed with your work lately. I'm offering you something more." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I want to make you a senior consultant. You'll have more responsibility, more autonomy, and you'll be working closely with me on some of our biggest projects. It's a big step, but I think you're ready." Emma's heart skipped a beat. A senior consultant? That was more than she had ever imagined. She had barely started in this world, and now Jack was offering her a position that many people would spend years trying to achieve. "I don't know what to say," she said, stunned. Jack smiled. "You don't have to say anything. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the position is yours." Emma sat there for a moment, processing everything. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had worked so hard to get here, and now it was all coming together. She felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had come so far from that small restaurant, from the life she had once known. And now, she was on the verge of something even bigger. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I won't let you down." Jack nodded, his expression approving. "I know you won't. You've got what it takes, Emma. Just keep pushing forward." As she left his office that day, Emma felt like she was on top of the world. She had made it. She had found her place in a world she once thought was out of reach. And for the first time, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Emma's new role as a senior consultant was both exhilarating and overwhelming. At first, she spent her days studying reports, attending high-stakes meetings, and learning the language of the financial world. The speed at which things moved was dizzying. but she was determined to keep up. Jack had placed his trust in her, and she wasn't about to let that slip away. As days turned into weeks, Emma's confidence grew. She was getting more involved in key decisions, advising on mergers, analyzing market trends, and contributing to high-level strategy discussions. Each time she spoke up, she could feel the respect from the team growing. She was no longer just the waitress who served food in a small restaurant. She was now a valuable member of a team that was shaping the future of a major financial firm. Despite her newfound success, Emma still felt a pull toward the life she had left behind. One evening, after another intense meeting with Jack, she found herself walking through the familiar streets of her old neighborhood. The buildings looked different now, smaller, more distant. She missed the simplicity of her old life, the comfort of knowing exactly what to expect each day. But when she saw a familiar face at the corner cafe, a local barista she had once served as a waitress, she smiled and walked over. "Hey, how have you been?" she asked, her voice warm with nostalgia. The barista, Sarah, looked up in surprise. "Emma, is that really you?" she asked, her eyes wide with recognition. "You look amazing." Emma laughed softly. "Thanks, it's been a wild ride. I'm actually doing something completely different now." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "I'm a financial consultant now," Emma said, not entirely believing the words herself. "I'm working with Jack Anderson." "Ever heard of him?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Jack Anderson? As in the billionaire CEO?" Emma nodded, her smile growing. "Yeah, that one. I'm actually part of his team now. It's crazy, right?" Sarah grinned, clearly impressed. "That's amazing. I never thought you'd end up in finance. But if anyone could do it, it's you." Emma's smile faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered. "Yeah, I guess I just needed a little push." The conversation shifted to other topics, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of disconnect. It felt strange to be talking about her new life in the same way she had once talked about waitressing. The difference was obvious now, but it still felt surreal. As she left the cafe and walked back to her apartment, she couldn't help but think about how much she had changed. She had always dreamed of a better life, but now that she had it, she wasn't sure how much of her old self she had left behind. The next day, Jack called her into his office again. "Emma, I need to discuss something with you," he said, his voice businesslike but warm. "We have a new project, and I think you're the right person to lead it." Emma sat down across from him, intrigued. "What's the project?" she asked. "We're looking into expanding into new markets overseas, particularly in Asia and Europe," Jack explained. "I need someone who can think on their feet, someone who understands the bigger picture. I think you're ready for this." Emma's heart raced. This was the kind of opportunity she had dreamed about, the chance to lead something significant. She had come so far so quickly, and now she was about to take on an even bigger challenge. "I'm honored," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I won't let you down." Jack smiled. "I know you won't. You've got what it takes, Emma. This is your chance to make a real impact." Over the next few months, Emma worked tirelessly on the new project. She traveled to various countries, meeting with potential partners, gathering data, and helping the company expand its reach into new territories. The work was grueling, but she thrived under the pressure. She was no longer the outsider in the room. She was now a key player, making decisions that shaped the company's future. One afternoon, as she sat in a conference room after a particularly successful meeting, Jack pulled her aside. "Emma, I've been watching your progress," he said. "You've been doing great. But there's something I need to talk to you about." Emma felt a slight flutter of nerves. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cautious. Jack's expression softened. "I think it's time for you to take on even more responsibility. I'm offering you a senior partner position. You'll have a seat at the table with the board, and you'll be part of the decision-making process for all major company strategies." Emma was stunned. Senior partner? She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure what to say. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. Jack smiled. "You don't need to say anything. Just keep doing what you've been doing. This is your next step." As she left his office that day, Emma felt a sense of disbelief wash over her. She had worked so hard to get here, but now that it was happening, it felt almost too good to be true. She had gone from a waitress struggling to make ends meet to a senior partner at one of the most influential companies in the world. It was overwhelming, but it was also exactly what she had always wanted. The journey wasn't easy, but it had been worth every step. Emma knew that her life had changed forever, and she was ready for whatever came next. As Emma settled into her new role as senior partner, the weight of her responsibilities grew heavier with each passing day. Her days were filled with strategic meetings, international calls, and decisions that would shape the company's future. But despite the pressure, she thrived. Jack's faith in her had proven to be well placed, and Emma was beginning to realize that she had truly earned her place at the table. She had come a long way from her days as a waitress, but it still felt surreal at times. She had grown comfortable in the corporate world, but a part of her still longed for the simplicity of her old life. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of back-to-back meetings, Emma found herself standing at the window of her office, staring out at the skyline. The city had always been full of promise, but now it felt almost overwhelming. She had everything she had ever wanted: success, recognition, and financial stability, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It was then that her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Mia, her old friend from the cafe where she had once worked. "How's everything going? Are you still holding it together?" Emma smiled at the text. Mia had always known how to check in with her, even when things were hectic. "It's going great," Emma replied. "But it's also a lot more than I expected. Sometimes I feel like I'm in over my head." Mia's response was quick. "I knew you'd do it. You've always been capable of more than you gave yourself credit for." Emma looked down at her phone, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and longing. Mia had always believed in her, even when Emma didn't believe in herself. But now that she was at the top of the corporate ladder, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she had lost something along the way. Had she become so focused on her career that she had forgotten about the things that truly mattered? She put her phone down and turned her attention back to the city outside. The lights of the buildings below twinkled like a constellation, but the beauty of it all felt distant. It was then that Jack entered her office, his presence pulling her out of her thoughts. "I know it's been a long day, but I need to talk to you about something important," he said, his voice calm but urgent. Emma straightened in her chair. "What's going on?" "There's a big opportunity on the horizon," Jack began, taking a seat across from her. "We've been offered a chance to invest in a new technology startup. They're making huge waves in the renewable energy sector, and the potential is massive. But it's risky." Emma listened intently, her mind already processing the information. "What's the catch?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. Jack leaned forward. "They've got a solid idea, but their leadership team is inexperienced. They need guidance, and we could provide that. But it will take a lot of work, a lot of resources. I'm putting together a team to help them grow, and I want you to lead it." Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was the kind of project she had dreamed of, something that could change the world, something that could leave a real legacy. "I'm honored," she said, her voice steady. "But I'm not sure if I'm the right person. This is a huge risk." Jack smiled. "That's exactly why I need you. You've got a unique perspective. You're not bound by traditional thinking. That's what's going to make all the difference." Emma hesitated. She had never led a project this big before. It was a challenge unlike any she had faced, and the stakes were higher than ever. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the excitement building within her. This was what she had worked for. This was her moment to make a lasting impact. "I'll do it," Emma said, her voice firm. "I'll lead the team." Jack's expression softened. "I knew I could count on you." Over the next few weeks, Emma threw herself into the project. She spent countless hours reviewing the startup's business model, meeting with their team, and developing strategies for growth. It was hard work, but Emma thrived under the pressure. She brought her unique insights and instincts to the table, and slowly but surely, the company began to see results. But as the project gained momentum, Emma noticed something unsettling. Her work-life balance was slipping away. She found herself working late into the night, canceling plans with friends, and sacrificing personal time for the project. She told herself it was all temporary, that the payoff would be worth it in the end. But the more she gave, the more she began to lose touch with the things that had once grounded her. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Emma received a call from her mother. "Emma, sweetheart, you haven't visited in weeks. How are you doing? You're working so hard, but you need to take care of yourself too." Emma sighed, guilt weighing heavily on her shoulders. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a lot of work right now. I'll come by soon, I promise." But deep down, Emma knew it wasn't just about work. She had been so focused on achieving success that she had lost sight of the things that truly mattered: family, friends, and her own well-being. The conversation with her mother stayed with her long after the call ended. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Emma realized something important. She didn't want to lose herself in this pursuit of success. She had worked hard to get where she was, but she also needed to find balance. It wasn't about choosing between her career and her personal life. It was about making space for both. The next morning, Emma made a decision. She would continue to give her all to the project, but she would also make time for the things that mattered most. She would find a way to succeed without sacrificing her happiness. It wouldn't be easy, but Emma was ready to take on the challenge. As Emma continued to manage her work with the startup project, she began to feel the weight of her responsibilities in ways she hadn't expected. The project was thriving, and Jack's faith in her seemed more justified with each passing day. But the pressure was mounting. Meetings with investors, endless paperwork, and strategy sessions were beginning to take their toll. The late nights, the missed calls, and the constant email notifications were slowly chipping away at her sense of balance. For the first time since she started working with Jack, Emma felt like she was losing control. She had been so focused on impressing everyone and proving herself that she had forgotten about the things that once mattered: friends, family, her own well-being. One morning, as she walked into the office, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. Jack was standing in the middle of the room, talking to a group of executives. He smiled when he saw her. "Emma," he said, his voice warm, "I'm glad you're here. We need to talk." Emma was taken aback by his sudden attention. She had been expecting another long day of work, but this felt different. She followed him into his office, and as they sat down, Jack's expression shifted. "I've been noticing something," he said, his tone serious. "You've been working nonstop. Your dedication is impressive, but I'm worried about you. You've been pushing yourself too hard." Emma blinked, surprised by his concern. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just a little tired, that's all." Jack shook his head. "It's more than that, Emma. I've seen it. You're burning out. You need to take a step back before it's too late." Emma felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't realized just how much her work had been consuming her. She had been so focused on achieving success that she had ignored the signs that she was overexerting herself. "I can handle it," she said. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew they weren't true. Jack was right. She had been pushing herself too hard. "I know you can," he replied, his voice softening. "But you don't have to do it all alone. You've got a team here to support you, and you've earned the right to lean on them. Don't let your drive for success blind you to what really matters." His words hit Emma harder than she expected. She had spent so much time trying to prove herself to Jack, to the company, and to herself that she had neglected the simple truth. Success wasn't everything. At least, not at the expense of her health and happiness. "I think you're right," Emma admitted quietly. "I've been too focused on the wrong things." Jack nodded. "It's easy to get lost in the race, but remember, the race is long, and you're in it for the long haul. You don't have to burn yourself out to reach the finish line." Emma took a deep breath, realizing just how much she had been neglecting. Her work had become her entire world, and in the process, she had sacrificed the things that truly mattered: time with family, time with friends, and time for herself. As she left Jack's office that day, Emma made a promise to herself. She would continue to give her best to the project, but she would no longer let it define her. She would make time for the things she had neglected, even if it meant saying no to a few more meetings or staying late at the office. The next weekend, Emma took a much-needed break. She spent the day with her mother, catching up on life and reminiscing about the old days. They had lunch at the same cafe where Emma used to work, and Emma couldn't help but laugh at how much had changed since then. She had come so far, but it was moments like these, simple, grounding moments, that reminded her of who she really was. Later that evening, she called Mia. "Hey, I've been meaning to ask you something," she said. "Would you like to come visit me next weekend? I'm taking a break from work, and I think it would be great to catch up." Mia's voice was filled with excitement. "Of course. I'd love to. It's been so long since we've had a chance to hang out." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she was beginning to feel like she had everything in balance. Her career was important, but it wasn't the only thing that defined her. She was Emma, strong, capable, and more than her job. And with that, she felt a renewed sense of clarity. She had found the right path, And while it wouldn't always be easy, she was determined to stay on it. Emma knew that success wasn't just about reaching the top. It was about finding happiness and fulfillment along the way. And now, she was ready to embrace both. Emma woke up early the next day, the cool morning air filling her apartment as the sunlight streamed in through the windows. The weekend had been everything she needed, a chance to reconnect with her family, recharge, and find some semblance of balance. But as she sat at her kitchen table with a hot cup of coffee in hand, she knew that the real work was about to begin. She had made a commitment to herself to keep her personal life in check while still giving her all to the new project with Jack. It wouldn't be easy, but Emma was determined to find that balance. That Monday, she returned to the office with a fresh mindset. The new startup project had been progressing well, but there was a major deadline approaching. Emma was leading a team of specialists, coordinating resources, and making sure that everything was on track for the big launch. Her job was no longer just about helping the company grow. It was about creating real change, and the stakes were higher than ever. As she walked into the conference room for a strategy meeting, she could feel the tension in the air. Everyone was on edge, preparing for what was about to unfold. Jack was already there, his usual calm demeanor in place, though there was a hint of urgency in his voice as he addressed the team. "We're about to make a big move," he began, looking around the room. "The launch is going to be a game changer. We need to be ready for the media storm, the public attention, and the potential risks. Emma, I want you to lead the presentation to the board next week. They're going to have questions, and I need you to have the answers." Emma nodded, her heart racing. Leading the presentation meant that she would be in the spotlight, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. But Jack's faith in her made her feel ready, and that confidence gave her the courage to rise to the occasion. "I'm on it," she replied, her voice steady. The meeting continued, with discussions about marketing, distribution channels, and financial projections. Emma took notes, her mind already working through the details of the presentation. There were so many moving parts, but she was no longer intimidated by the complexity of it all. The company's success depended on their ability to execute, and Emma was determined to lead her team to victory. Over the next few days, Emma worked tirelessly, preparing for the presentation. She met with the marketing team, reviewing their strategies. She collaborated with finance to ensure the numbers were accurate. She double-checked every detail, knowing that even the smallest oversight could derail the entire launch. As the day of the presentation approached, Emma found herself feeling the pressure. But there was also something else inside her, a quiet confidence that had grown over time. She wasn't the same person who had walked into Jack's office months ago. She had proven herself, both to him and to herself. The night before the presentation, Emma sat alone in her apartment, reviewing her notes for the final time. She glanced at the clock and realized it was late. She had been so focused on the work that she hadn't taken a break all day. The silence in her apartment felt suffocating, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the weight of her success pressing down on her. She had achieved so much, but was it enough? She thought about her family, her friends, the simple life she had left behind. Was it possible to keep moving forward without losing herself in the process? Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack. "You've got this, Emma. Don't forget to breathe. I believe in you." Emma smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. She hadn't expected Jack's message, but it was exactly what she needed to hear. She wasn't alone in this. She had the support of her team, and more importantly, she had the confidence in herself to succeed. The next day, Emma stood in front of the board, her heart racing as she began the presentation. She spoke with clarity and conviction, answering every question with precision. The room was silent as she presented the numbers, the projections, and the strategy for the next phase of the project. She could feel the eyes of the board members on her, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt empowered. This was her moment to prove that she was ready for this. When the presentation was over, there was a brief silence in the room. Then, one of the senior executives spoke. "Impressive," he said. "You've managed to pull everything together in record time. This is the kind of leadership we need moving forward." Emma exhaled, a sense of relief flooding over her. She had done it. She had delivered, and now the project was officially on track for the next big step. As the meeting wrapped up, Jack walked over to her with a smile. "You did great," he said, clapping her on the back. "I knew you were the right person for this job." Emma smiled back, her nerves fading. "Thank you," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without the support of the team." Jack nodded. "You've earned this, Emma. But remember, this is just the beginning. There's more work to do, and I know you're ready for it." Emma left the meeting feeling a sense of accomplishment she hadn't known she needed. She had proven herself, not just to Jack, but to everyone who had doubted her. She had taken the first big step in her career, and there was no turning back. But as she walked back to her office, a new thought occurred to her. Success was important, but so was finding balance. She could be ambitious and still take time for the things that mattered most. She didn't have to choose between her career and her personal life. She could have both. And that realization gave her the strength to move forward with a new sense of clarity. As the weeks passed, Emma's role continued to evolve. She had stepped into a leadership position and was now not only shaping the direction of the company, but also becoming the face of its new projects. It was exhilarating, but it was also overwhelming. The pressure to perform, to succeed, to be the person Jack believed her to be, weighed heavily on her. She had proven herself with the startup project, but now there were bigger expectations. The next major challenge was a massive deal, a partnership with a tech company that had the potential to reshape the company's future. It was the kind of opportunity Emma had dreamed of, but it came with risks that could cost the company millions. As she sat in the conference room, going over the details for the 100th time, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The numbers made sense on paper, but her instincts told her that there was more to the deal than what was being presented. She trusted her gut, the same gut that had guided her through countless challenges before, but now it was telling her that she needed to dig deeper. That evening, after another round of meetings, Emma stayed late in the office, poring over the fine print of the contract. It was a long shot, but something about the partnership felt off. She had learned to trust her instincts, even when they went against the grain, and this time, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. As the hours stretched on, Emma discovered a small but crucial detail hidden in the clauses, an exit strategy that didn't sit right. It was a loophole that could allow the partner to back out of the deal with little to no consequences, leaving the company exposed. Emma felt a rush of adrenaline as she realized what she had found. This was the moment. She knew that if she brought this to Jack's attention, it could change everything. She didn't hesitate. She called him, her voice steady despite the late hour. "Jack, I need to talk to you about the deal," she said. "I've been going through the contract, and I found something that doesn't add up." Jack's voice was calm but alert. "What did you find?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Emma took a deep breath. "There's an exit clause that's too favorable to the partner. If we go through with this, we risk losing everything if they back out. I think we need to reconsider this partnership." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Jack spoke. "You're sure about this?" "Absolutely. I've double-checked everything. The numbers are fine, but this clause could put us in a vulnerable position. We need to renegotiate the terms." Jack was silent for a moment, processing her words. "I knew you were the right person for this job," he said finally. "I'll call a meeting first thing tomorrow. We'll get this fixed." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had done it. She had found the weakness and caught it in time. As she hung up the phone, a sense of relief washed over her. She had taken the risk, trusted her instincts, and it had paid off. The next morning, Jack called an emergency meeting with the executive team. Emma presented her findings, and the room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of what she had uncovered. Jack stood up at the front of the room. "Emma's right," he said, his voice strong. "We're going back to the table with this one. No one is going to take advantage of us. This company is built on integrity, and we're not going to compromise that for a quick deal." The team rallied behind her, impressed by her diligence and insight. The negotiations were intense, but ultimately, the deal was restructured in a way that protected the company's interests. Emma's confidence soared as she realized just how far she had come. She had proven herself once again, not just to Jack, but to everyone around her. She wasn't just a senior consultant anymore. She was a key player, someone whose decisions could shape the future of the company. But as the excitement of the victory began to fade, Emma found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She had sacrificed so much to get to this point. Late nights, lost time with family and friends, the constant pressure to be the best. And while she was proud of what she had accomplished, she couldn't help but wonder if it had been worth it. The balance she had fought so hard to find still felt elusive. She had learned so much, grown so much, but at what cost? That night, Emma sat alone in her apartment, her mind racing with questions. Had she really found success, or had success found her, pulling her deeper into a world she didn't fully understand? She was no longer just the girl who worked in a small restaurant. She was someone who made multi-million-dollar decisions, someone who commanded respect in the boardroom. But in her quiet moments, when the work was done and the office was empty, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She had everything she had ever dreamed of, but still, something didn't feel right. She knew that finding the balance would take time. The work wasn't going to stop, and the stakes would only continue to rise. But Emma was determined to figure it out. She wasn't going to lose herself in the pursuit of success. She had worked too hard to get here, and now, she was ready to take on whatever came next, but this time, with a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. Emma had successfully navigated her latest challenge, but the pressure was far from over. As the company's project with the tech startup began to take shape, her days grew even busier, and the expectations continued to mount. Jack's faith in her had never wavered, but now, with the company's future resting on the success of the venture, Emma felt the weight of that responsibility like never before. She had become the go-to person in the company, the one Jack turned to when critical decisions had to be made. She had earned her place, but with that came a constant fear that she might slip, that one wrong move could unravel everything. As she sat in her office one evening, going over the numbers for the final stages of the project, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her. "Mother, I haven't seen you in so long. How about you come over this weekend? We miss you." Emma stared at the message for a moment, a pang of guilt washing over her. Her mother was right. She hadn't visited in weeks. She had been so consumed by work, by the success she had fought so hard for, that she had neglected the people who mattered most. She had promised herself she would find balance, but it seemed that every time she made progress, work pulled her back in. With a sigh, Emma typed back a quick response. "I'll be there, Mom. I miss you too." It wasn't much, but it was a start. She put her phone down and took a deep breath. She had a choice to make. She had worked so hard to get here, to prove herself, but at what cost? The feeling of disconnection was growing stronger. She was surrounded by people at work, but the moments of true connection had become fewer and farther between. She had to figure out a way to balance both worlds, her career and her personal life. The next weekend, Emma went to visit her mother. It felt good to be back in the familiar space, sitting at the kitchen table with her mom, talking about old memories and new dreams. For a few hours, she allowed herself to just be Emma, the daughter, not the senior consultant, not the corporate leader. She felt like she could breathe again. As she left her mother's house that day, Emma felt a renewed sense of clarity. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, but now, more than ever, she realized that success wasn't just about numbers, projects, or accolades. It was about the relationships that grounded her, the people who made her feel seen and heard. She needed to make more room for them in her life. The next morning, as she sat in the office preparing for the final stages of the startup project's launch, she made a decision. She would delegate more, rely on her team, and take a step back when necessary. The project was important, but so was her well-being, and so was her connection to the people she loved. As she walked into Jack's office later that afternoon, she was ready to share her thoughts. "Jack," she began, "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about how I'm balancing all of this." Jack looked up from his desk, his expression neutral but curious. "What do you mean?" Emma hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I've been pushing myself to the limit, and I've realized that I need to do better. I need to make time for the things that matter outside of work. I can't keep running on empty." Jack studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I've noticed the change, Emma. You've been doing great, but you don't have to do it all on your own. I've got a team in place to support you. Don't hesitate to lean on them. You've earned that." Emma felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been afraid that Jack would think less of her, that he would see her desire for balance as a weakness. But instead, he respected her for recognizing what she needed. "Thank you, Jack," she said, her voice steady. "I think it's time I start working smarter, not harder." Jack smiled. "That's the right mindset. The project is important, but your health and happiness are just as important. You don't have to do it all, Emma." As she left Jack's office, Emma felt a new sense of empowerment. She wasn't abandoning the project or her career, but she was taking control of how she approached it. She could still be successful while maintaining the balance she so desperately needed. The following weeks were a testament to Emma's new approach. She delegated tasks more effectively, trusting her team to handle what she couldn't. She made sure to take breaks, to spend time with family and friends, and to recharge. The project continued to move forward smoothly, and the company saw the results. But Emma's life, both professionally and personally, began to feel more in harmony. The sense of fulfillment she had been searching for was no longer just a distant dream. It was becoming her reality. She had found the balance she needed to succeed, and in doing so, she realized that the most important part of her journey wasn't the accolades or the deals she closed, but the people she was able to share it all with. Emma had learned that true success wasn't about doing it all alone. It was about finding a way to thrive while staying true to herself and the people who mattered most. As Emma settled into this new rhythm of balancing work and her personal life, she began to feel a sense of calm that had eluded her for so long. The startup project she had led was now a resounding success, and her reputation within the company had grown significantly. Jack continued to trust her with larger projects, and her influence within the company was undeniable. Yet, as the excitement of the victories slowly faded, Emma felt the familiar stirrings of ambition begin to resurface. She had worked so hard to get here, but now that she had the stability she longed for, she began to wonder if she could do more. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when Jack called her into his office with a look on his face that Emma had learned to read well. It was a mix of excitement and anticipation, as if he was about to share something important. "Emma, I have an opportunity I want to discuss with you," Jack said, motioning for her to take a seat. "It's a big one, and it's a step up from anything we've done before. The company is looking at an international expansion, and we need someone to lead it." Emma blinked, surprised by the offer. Leading an international expansion was no small task, and it was a move that would require her to step into a much larger role than she had ever taken on. "International," Emma repeated, her mind racing as she processed the information. "That's a huge responsibility. What exactly would I be doing?" Jack leaned forward, his eyes focused on her. "I need someone to lead the charge, someone who understands how to handle large-scale operations, handle cross-cultural teams, and oversee multiple markets at once. I think you're the perfect person for the job, Emma." Emma took a deep breath, feeling both excited and nervous. She had worked hard to prove herself, but this was a whole new level. It would require everything she had learned so far, plus a lot of new skills. "I'm honored, Jack, but this is a lot to take on," she said, her voice steady but unsure. "What makes you so confident I can do it?" Jack smiled. "Because you've already shown you can handle the pressure. You led the startup project, you managed a team, and you've learned how to think strategically. Now, this is your chance to take those skills and apply them to something bigger." Emma paused, her thoughts swirling. She had always dreamed of taking on a leadership role that would have a global impact. This was her chance, but it also felt like the next step in a long journey. "I don't want to say yes without knowing I can truly handle it," she said, looking Jack in the eye. "I've learned a lot, but this is a whole different beast." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. Take your time, but know this, there's no one else I would trust with this. You've got what it takes, Emma." Emma left his office that afternoon, her mind buzzing with possibilities. The offer was incredible, but it would stretch her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Could she really take on a global role? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing. This was the kind of opportunity she had been working toward for years. The following days were a whirlwind of meetings, research, and conversations with the teams who would help her in this new venture. She spoke with leaders from different departments, experts in international markets, and people who had experience handling the kind of expansion that Jack had in mind. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place, and Emma started to feel a sense of clarity. She had the vision, the drive, and the support of her team, but she also knew that success wouldn't come easily. As the project moved forward, Emma found herself becoming more involved in every detail. She began to oversee the logistics of entering new markets, building teams, and ensuring that every operation was running smoothly. The stakes were higher than ever, and the challenges felt even greater. But with every success, Emma's confidence grew. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace the unknown, and to rely on the strength of the people around her. The company's international expansion started to take shape, and soon, Emma was leading a global team, working across time zones, coordinating efforts between continents, and overseeing massive operations. It wasn't easy, but it was everything she had dreamed of. Jack remained her mentor, offering advice and encouragement when needed, but he gave her the space to lead. He trusted her to make the tough decisions, to think outside the box, and to ensure that the company's vision stayed on course. Over time, Emma's leadership became a defining factor in the company's success. The markets were expanding, and profits were rising, but more importantly, Emma had created a culture of collaboration, innovation, and trust within her team. As she sat in her office one evening, looking out over the city, Emma realized that she had found the balance she had been searching for all along. The work was demanding, but she had learned to take care of herself, to take time for the things that mattered. Her relationships were stronger, her career was thriving, and she had finally found the sense of fulfillment she had longed for. She wasn't just a senior consultant or a leader in her company. She was someone who had learned that success wasn't just about achieving your goals. It was about growing, learning, and sharing that journey with the people who supported you along the way. As the months passed, Emma continued to lead with confidence, navigating the complexities of her role while staying true to the values she had cultivated along the way. The company's international expansion was a resounding success, and Emma's leadership was now regarded as the cornerstone of the company's growth. She had gone from a waitress with big dreams to a trusted executive whose decisions shaped the future of a global enterprise. But the journey wasn't without its sacrifices. The pressure, though rewarding, had at times pushed Emma to the brink. Balancing the demands of her career with her personal life had never been easy, and there were moments when she questioned if she had lost sight of what truly mattered. Yet, as she sat in her office one evening, gazing out at the city skyline, Emma couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. She had built something meaningful, not just in terms of the company's success, but in her own personal growth. She had learned that success wasn't just about achievements and accolades. It was about finding balance, maintaining integrity, and nurturing the relationships that brought joy and fulfillment to her life. That night, Emma made a decision. She was going to take the next step in her life. She had spent so much time focused on building her career, but now it was time to invest more in the things she loved: family, friends, and her own well-being. Emma knew that she had to take a break, to step back and recharge, to reconnect with the world outside the office. It was a decision that felt liberating. The next weekend, she flew home to visit her mother. It was the first time in months that she had taken an extended break from work. Her mother was overjoyed to see her, and they spent the weekend catching up, talking, and relishing in the comfort of each other's company. Emma realized how much she had missed these simple moments: the laughter, the conversations, the shared memories. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly at peace. As Emma returned to work after her visit, she felt refreshed and ready for the challenges ahead. She was still the leader who had navigated complex decisions, but now, she was someone who understood the importance of rest and connection. She had learned that success wasn't sustainable without a sense of fulfillment beyond the office. With renewed energy, Emma returned to the projects she had set in motion. She focused on mentoring her team, encouraging them to find the balance she had recently discovered. Her leadership became not just about the company's bottom line, but about the well-being of everyone she worked with. She shared her experience of taking time off with the team, reminding them that self-care was just as important as professional growth. Over time, Emma began to see her colleagues flourish, not just as employees, but as people who valued their own time, their families, and their passions outside of work. Emma had always believed that success was about the climb, about achieving more, proving herself, and making an impact. But now, she understood that true success was about the journey, the people she met, the lessons she learned, and the relationships she built along the way. As she walked through the office one morning, she saw her team hard at work, but there was also a sense of joy in the air. The office was no longer just a place of pressure and deadlines. It was a space where collaboration, creativity, and growth thrived. Jack, who had been her mentor throughout this journey, noticed the change too. "You've built something special here, Emma," he said one afternoon. "Not just the business, but the culture. People are excited to come to work because they feel supported." Emma smiled, grateful for the recognition. "I've learned a lot from you, Jack. It's not just about the work we do. It's about the people we do it with. As the months turned into years, Emma continued to lead with empathy and understanding. She became known not just as a brilliant strategist, but as someone who genuinely cared about the people around her. Her story, from a waitress struggling to make ends meet to a successful business leader, became an inspiration to many. But Emma's greatest accomplishment wasn't the company's success or her own career milestones. It was the realization that she had found the balance she had been seeking all along. She had learned that it was possible to achieve great things without losing sight of what truly mattered. She had built a life that was rich not just in professional achievements, but in love, connection, and personal fulfillment. And that was the legacy she would cherish forever. Discover a series of touching stories that will inspire and move you. This collection of life-changing experiences showcases the power of personal growth, the importance of family, and the journey to success. In these touching stories, the main character overcomes personal struggles, embraces leadership, and builds a fulfilling life both in the corporate world and beyond. Touching stories like these remind us that success isn't just about career achievements, but about finding balance and staying true to what matters most. With each turning point, these touching stories offer deep lessons about resilience, ambition, and the strength of human connection. As we follow the protagonist's journey from a waitress to a senior partner in a thriving company, we see how touching stories like hers can help anyone face challenges and grow from them. These touching stories reveal that true success comes not only from professional triumphs, but also from the personal relationships we nurture and the values we uphold. Embrace the beauty of touching stories and get inspired to achieve your own dreams while remembering the importance of the people who support you along the way.